Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the evening news. I'm your host, David Brinkley. No.
Wow, you're dating yourself.
Yeah,
Big
everyone.
time.
Who even knows who David Brinkley is anymore? My mom, who is watching, would know, right? And
Yes.
do you remember who the other guy was?
Chet Huntley.
Chet Huntley and David
I
Brinkley.
just dated myself.
So, well, Presbytera, welcome back. She's wearing summer colors, right? Because it's still summer, right? Officially.
It is, yeah.
And so
First, it's Rochester, so that can end next week.
that can end by the end of the show. Who
Yeah.
knows? Okay. But what we were gonna, there was something I was gonna talk about.
The Northern Lights that are out tonight.
Oh, yeah. That's right. They're Demos. You told us that there's going to be Northern Lights out tonight,
That's
right?
what I heard in the news today. Apparently, there are going to be Northern Lights visible from Rochester tonight. But who knows? Hopefully, I'd like to see them.
So, well, you can see what we've got in front. Icon of the week. But I thought this was rather interesting. You know how it is when people pass away, the family doesn't necessarily know what to do with the remaining icons and the palm crosses that they've collected for 40 years. So the church gets them. Well, usually I get an icon, and the icons are very nice, But I received this, icon in a bottle, icon in a bottle. I just had to sing this
If
song.
we get a copyright ding on that,
Oh my
I'll never
gosh.
forget it.
No one will recognize it for what it's from.
But I thought this was kind of interesting. I mean, it's a classic icon of Theotokos and Christ. But I mean, I don't know how they got it in the bottle. I don't know if they hand blew it. It's like shipping a bottle, right?
It's
I guess
magic.
It's magic, Tommy. Okay, Donnie, magic, Donnie, right? So this presents an interesting dilemma because if icons are badly damaged, and we've done a video on how to dispose of sacramental items. We haven't necessarily talked about icons, but normally what you can do, you can obviously because they are typically blessed. The assumption is that icons have been blessed, so we can't obviously throw them away, but they can be buried, but most of the time they're consumed as they would like anything else, like the Annunciation that we have. They would be burned. Okay, but this provides an interesting dilemma because I guess I would just break the bottle and then
Or you can bury the whole bottle.
or I could just bury the whole bottle. I guess.
Wouldn't it be easier to just donate, or?
Well, you can see. I mean, again, if you look closely, the icon's not in a very good state. There's some deterioration. Do you see? Is that like mold on the top or something like that, or kind of moss or something like that? So so just like a United States flag, okay, when it wears out, it should be properly disposed of. So you don't want to necessarily have icons that are not in a good state. It's not very, very reverent. So, but I just thought this was an interesting concept. I've never seen this before. If anybody's seen anything like that before, let me know. If somebody would like this icon, then please let me know, and I will send it to you. So, I mean,
We should determine if that's mold first.
Well, here.
Yeah.
But,
we'll look at it later.
But this
We'll
does
see.
bring up, I know I'm going to jump into a question before we actually officially start, but, I can understand burning, like, certain blessed items, like the palms and so forth, but I think a lot of people will be very uncomfortable with burning an icon.
Well, again, remember, under Orthodox theology, the icon it's a piece of wood, okay? We are, and as we say on the Sunday of Orthodoxy, we venerate the prototype that is being presented. So all we are doing is destroying the material, all right? And again, right, matter can either be created or destroyed. So we're not in any way destroying the image. Now, if I lit it on fire with the intent that this is what I think of St. John the Baptist, okay, then obviously there'd be problematic there. Okay, but in this case, we have to remember what it is. I mean, it it is wood, but we venerate the prototype that is being represented. So we don't want to go crazy here and start worshiping icons. So and if there's an discomfort with that, discomfort with that, then it can be buried.
Right, we bury the icon people, right, when they die.
Yeah, we bury the yes, that's right. Again, just a note here that reminded me. You cannot. I know it happens all the time, but I'm just telling you, you cannot be buried with an icon. Okay. Because a lot of times somebody will the family will bring up the favorite icon. This was my papu's or my yaya's favorite icon, and she loved it, and I want them to always have it. Okay, the Orthodox Church rejects that, and you know why?
No.
It practically sounds Egyptian, like you're buried. Like if you go to heaven with whatever you're buried with.
Well, I mean that's they're not burying it for that reason though. They're not burying their riches with them, but they're burying. They say, well, this is their icon of Jesus. If we truly believe that at the resurrection we will meet Jesus, okay. So if you were meeting your mom or your dad, right, and you were holding a picture of them, right. Would you stare at the picture and not look at your mom? Of course not. No. So there's no use for an icon when you are standing before Christ. So and he's there with the in the church triumphant with the saints. So we do not bury our loved ones with an icon. All right. And if they ask you the question, the answer is, again, because they are face to face with the saints and certainly with our Lord and Savior. Okay. So just a small little trivia point.
In fact, Jack Sage Phoenix says that he wants it. So
he does.
Wow.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
We'll take a. Oh, someone didn't silence their phone. We will take a closer look to make sure it's not mold. It may just be dust in there.
Yeah, it could be just dust accumulated, but I wasn't sure. But we'll get that cleaned up. And Jack, thank you very much for saving this very unique icon. You have something to say? I've only out of the 5 gifts, I've only got addresses for 2. So make your public service announcement.
Well, no, just the only thing we would ask is if you won one of the prizes from last week's show, which was our 100th episode, and you can barely see behind the microphone our 100th episode plaque.
Oh.
If you won one of the prizes from last week's episode, please send us your email address at agocny@gmail.com so we can get in contact with you, so we can send it to you. If we don't receive in the next week or two, we'll do another contest to give away those remaining prizes.
All right. The person won the shortbread, I sent them theirs, and the person that won the coasters, I sent that out. So we have the T-shirt, the tea towel, and the mug left.
All right.
Can't be seen.
So let's. You have a topic you want to talk about real quick because we have a lot of questions accumulating.
Okay, and again, we can. I don't want to say too much about it, but there was quite a discussion, I think 2 weeks ago, about the topic of just war. What does the Orthodox Church think? And I had mentioned again that the Orthodox Church in no way
has just war.
Supports the concept of a justified war. Okay. Now, and I mentioned that there are a number of books out, but probably the 2 best books that are out there is one by Darrell Cole and Father Alexander Webster, which is called the Virtue of War. The Virtue of War. That's the first one, and then the second one, again by Father Alexander Webster, which is the primer, right? Which is the primer on Orthodox theology and their approach to war, is the pacifist option. So these 2 are probably the premier books. There's a lot more books out there for sure, but if we're talking about specifically now the Orthodox position, this is definitely the starting point. Darrell Cole goes a little bit further there. So if we want to expand on that, we can very quickly say that, as with everything in Orthodoxy, it's not that simple. So just to say, we never support war, we have war. War is a reality, okay? So where the patristic fathers, the Holy Fathers, never gave, and the Eastern patristic fathers now, never gave an outlined presentation of just war, as did Augustine, as did Ambrose, and as did Thomas Aquinas, where they laid out a kind of a theology of just war. The Eastern Fathers never did that. But what they did do is they listed out 3 conditions for the consideration of whether or not the war is just. And even that term can be a little bit difficult. So anyway, and so the early Christian church really didn't have any kind of doctrine for that, because again, Christ was going to reappear, so there was no sense to have that. So it was truly a pacifist option at that point for the early church. With now the coming of the Saint Constantine, the establishment of formal Christianity, the Edict of Milan, and all of that, there began to emerge some ideas and conditions that how warfare would be conducted. And so here in The Virtue of War, I just want to read out those 3. We won't go into a lot of detail, but it can at least promote some discussions. There are 3 conditions that clearly emerge from various components of Orthodox moral tradition. Number 1 is the proper political ethos, which would be the equivalent of a legitimate authority in the Western war, just war tradition. So is what we are attempting to do we have the legitimate authority to do that? Second, defense of the people of God, which would be the Orthodox equivalent, Darrell Cole says, of just cause in the Western war tradition. So is the action of war in defense of the people of God? And then third, the proper spiritual intent, which would be the Orthodox equivalent of right intent in the Western style of just war tradition. Again, these dating back to starting with Ambrose, St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas. All right, and so is there the spiritual intent means we're not doing it for a vengeful purpose. We're not doing it so that we can seek revenge, and we are not looking to punish the offenders, meaning that we are successful in war, and then we extend that to say, okay, now we are your rulers, we're taking over, so you lose your culture, you lose tradition. So those are the 3 things that we could say if the closest that we would have as Orthodox to just war is, again, the political ethos, which talks about legitimate intent legitimate authority, defense of the people of God. Are we truly defending now the people of God? And then thirdly, are we entering into this with proper spiritual intent? So just wanted to kind of add a little bit more depth to what I had said in the previous show.
All right. Let's go for questions.
All right.
Let's go for questions.
All right. In response to the latest short...
Are you trying to bang on the table? What are you doing?
Beer says, please go vegan, Father. We shouldn't contribute to the suffering and the gruesome killing of sentient living beings.
There's nothing wrong. The Orthodox Church has no problem with going vegan. Okay, so in that sense, though, we have been through Genesis. We have been given authority to protect that which God has given to us, and the plants and the animals are something that has been given to us. I fully agree 100% that we should have we should have PETA, meaning that we should have the proper ethical treatment of animals in how we raise them and then in how we butcher them. All right. So we have been given the right to eat meat, and we see that in the New Old Testament, and we see it in the New Testament. So the Orthodox Church is not going to condemn somebody that eats meat, but we can understand the position of taking a stand against those who are not properly caring for the animals that have been entrusted to their care. There are humane methods of slaughter, and there are humane methods of keeping animals, and so we need to follow those rules. But if somebody decides that they want to be vegan, okay, for whatever reason, then we don't have any issues with that.
Now, when you say PETA, you're talking about the acronym. You're not specifically talking about the organization.
Yeah, I'm obviously there is the organization PETA, but I just wanted to say it's important to look at the proper ethical treatment of animals.
And actually, if you follow an Orthodox fast, we are vegan more than half the year.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but telling a Greek they have to give up their souvlaki, I don't know, man. So, as long as it's ethical souvlaki, then you're okay.
Yeah, and I would definitely support that. Support organically based products. We support our local butcher who sources all of his meats from local farmers that he knows how they treat those animals. So there are ways that we can be responsible in how we eat meat.
And the ending from the last video with McDonald's, FYI, for those who didn't get it, that was a joke. We do not advocate eating McDonald's in Scotland.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
They had a haggis burger, maybe, but
a McHaggis. How can they not have a McHaggis?
Well, for the first, I've had all different kinds of haggis over the years we've been going, but the one that I had on this last trip, I had fried haggis, because the Scots will fry anything. Snickers bars, Mars bars, potatoes,
salad,
ice cream. They'll fry anything. And so I ordered a haggis, and it came in a fried log. And the word log and food should not be used together, right? Okay. So, and it wasn't bad. But I've had haggis better ways.
Yes. Well, can't always win. All right. In response to our video, Can You Get Sick from Holy Communion? A. Enska says, wow, the fact that this came out pretty much exactly 1 year before COVID became a global pandemic doesn't seem like a coincidence to me. It seems like God was trying to prepare his church to be knowledgeable in difficult times.
Well, I know, who am I to deny how God uses the ministries of his church? I can't deny that, but I didn't have that intent when I made that video. The intent behind that video was, my dad was one of those that was always bringing up the idea of, well, I don't want to receive communion because, the spoon, and I don't know what this person has. And so because I had heard other people bring that up, and because my dad was bringing it up, I thought, okay, you know what? And the show was new, I think. That was one of the first ones that we did, right? And I thought, you know what? Let me start addressing these very prevalent issues. And one of them that I had heard time and time again was, Father, I'm going to get sick from the spoon. And so I just wanted to address it. And God used that seemingly as the preparation for the situation that we ended up in.
I really like some of the responses, and our community is very, very strong in making in responding to some of the crazier things we see. But I'm very amused by responses to that video because a lot of people don't look at the dates, and they think, and they watch it, they watch it 2 years, like or a year into COVID.
Oh,
and
yes.
they think it's a COVID video. And
God,
no.
No, we had it, and our parish has been, our parish, has people on both sides. I mean, throughout the period of COVID, we had a number of our parishioners that were very dismayed that we did not offer communion. There was a time when we didn't offer communion, period, right? Okay, they weren't, and they were very dismayed, and they were very spiritually hurt by that. But then we had other people who, when we resumed communion again, they were, not offended, but upset that we were returning. So again, there's never going to be, I think, agreement in the church. I mean, I can just see it from the parish here. Agreement in the church about, is this the way, the common spoon, is this a proper way to receive communion? Is it not? We're always going to have kind of, this debate.
You're never going to get everybody to be happy with something. You can offer an entire group of people free ice cream, and you'll still have about a quarter of them complaining about the dairy industry. You're never going to make everybody happy.
Exactly.
Do you have ice cream in there?
Yeah. I was like, wow, that would have been a good segue.
As I pull out an ice cream cone. All right.
Okay. Petros asks, North American culture moves further and further away from first-generation Greeks, and the younger generation is increasingly unable to speak Greek. Mm-hmm. Additionally, many Greeks are marrying non-Greeks, you and me. Mm-hmm. Given that, having much of the service, or even 50% of it in Greek, becomes difficult for them to understand what is happening during the liturgy. Do you think the church will eventually move to a 90% English liturgy with a few parts of the liturgy remaining in Greek?
I think the number's going to be higher than that. I think the liturgy will be almost 99% English. I think we're going to that. I mean, I'm trying here to bring it to 80%. Okay, I don't think 50-50 is appropriate for this parish. It certainly wasn't appropriate for Flint. I think 70% is about right for this parish, because we still have a strong population of first-generation Greeks. And we do have a strong population of people, let's say even our age and in their 50s, who can still speak Greek and are comfortable enough in the liturgy to know what's going on. Our bishop is very clear in his guidance that I, as his priest, has the responsibility to minister appropriately to the entire parish. The entire parish is not, at this point, only English capable. They will be there. That's for sure. That may be 15 years, that may be 20 years, but you're absolutely right. We will get to a point here in America where an English liturgy, in its totality, will be the norm. The other reason for why I personally don't feel that we should move to a total English liturgy is that it is important to hear it in its original language so that it is not lost. Okay, so it is very important that the priest maintain his competency in being able to read at least, let's say, the gospel in Greek, so that people can at least hear it and not lose that very important component of how it should be pronounced. Because what we don't want to enter into, or we don't want to become, is what happened early on in the Catholic Church, when it was only the priest, because he was the only one that knew Latin, was the only one who could tell you what the gospel said. And so the people became prisoners of the priest because they didn't know Latin, and so whatever the priest told them, they had to believe. I feel that it's, and we learned this at seminary too, it is very, very, very important that the lay person be able to see the text in its original fashion so that they can make a decision about how it should be interpreted. We are constantly, even in this country, filled with examples where priests have misquoted and misread and misinterpreted the Bible and have used it to say incorrect and wrong things. And the laity needs to be able to say, no, Father, that is not what the gospel says. So we have to be able to maintain the hearing of that. Now, that doesn't mean that most of the liturgy needs to be, though, in Greek.
All right. But how many of the Greek speakers understand the liturgy in Greek? It's not the Greek they're speaking.
Oh, not even 1%. Even in our parish, if I asked 10 people who came to this country in their 20s and goes back to Greece every year, if I gave them any line within the liturgy and asked them for a correct translation, they would not be able to do that. This is why even in Greece they had to learn liturgical Greek. They didn't. I mean, we're not speaking modern Greek. We're speaking liturgical Greek.
What would you say to those who would be disappointed by that, as they would take it as an erosion of the culture?
Okay, help me.
There'll be a lot of traditionalists who think that by allowing more and more English to come into the liturgy and at one point maybe take over the liturgy completely, that would be an erosion of Greek culture. How would you respond to those?
Because if they want Greek culture, then go Greek dancing, have a Greek festival, have Greek classes. But Orthodoxy doesn't have. It should not be entangled in Greek culture. So, and both Terry and I, both the Presbyter and I, are very offended by people that say, oh, we go to the Greek church. That is not what you go to. The Greek church is the temple of Athena. That's what the Greek church is. That's the temple. Okay, you go to the Greek Orthodox church, or I would even be happy if you said I go to the Orthodox church. But when people come to me and they say, Father, or I'm listening to a conversation, oh yeah, we go to the Greek church. No, you don't. You want Greek culture, then you get Greek culture. And we've got plenty of it in this parish. And we've got plenty of it in my past parish and all the parishes around America. But we got to stop confusing Orthodoxy and our Greek culture.
Well, that's going to take a long time to change.
Yeah.
But even more than that is when people say American Easter. That, to me, I cringe every time I hear someone say American Easter.
Versus Greek Easter, right.
I truly cringe. That's...
Anyway. Yeah, because again, what are you saying? You're saying that if you say that, it's the difference between Greek Easter and American Easter. So what you're saying is you're not an American. That's kind of what we say back to them. So you're not an American. Then, well, you know what I mean. No, I don't know what you mean. So we got to be careful.
Oh. Well, anyway, let's see.
Okay, where's my soapbox? I got to get down on my soapbox.
Wayfaring stranger. I live in London, and trying to get confession here is difficult due to having to make appointments like 2 weeks away. I find this upsetting as too long away, and the churches seem to put. Is that correct?
Yeah.
As too long away, and the churches seem to be putting money before souls. As I get told they have feast days, etc., it is unrealistic to expect priests available for confession every day for people.
Is it unrealistic? So apparently they're having an issue going to confession because of the priest's unavailability. So what do you do in that case?
Well, I mean, there's something wrong there, certainly, because he's not living in a remote village where there's one priest, right? You're in London. I mean, the archdiocese is there for Bede's sake, that's well, you know what? I mean, as a layperson, if you are, I mean, you have the right to have your confession heard in a timely manner. Okay. I cannot, myself personally, I can't see where the priest can't make time to hear I mean, unless it's like an 8-hour confession, which I don't think it is, right? Okay, I just I can't picture a scenario where the priest has no time within a 2-week period. Okay, now the thing I don't know from this is, has it just been a phone call to the secretary, and the secretary has said, "I'm sorry, but Father is busy. I'm sorry, but Father is busy." Screening calls. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it may just take, showing up, and saying, "Father X, I want to have communion, and I've told that I'm not able to have communion." And he may turn around and say,
Confession?
"This is confession." And he may turn around and say, "This is the first I've heard of it. When did you ask? 2 weeks ago I called the office." And then he'll say, "Okay, we're going to fix this now." Or then he'll provide you some type of answer. He has to provide you some type of answer. So I think what this needs is, and there are a number of Orthodox churches, I'm sure in the London area, but it sounds like you now need to actually see the priest himself. And obviously one of those times is either during like a weekday liturgy where there's not so many people, and then you can catch him. Sunday is probably going to be difficult. There's a lot of people, and you're probably not going to have a chance to talk to him. But there are going to be always a number of feast days that the priest is going to be doing that service. There's not a lot of people there. That's when I would show up, and I would say, "Father, I need to personally schedule a confession with you," and then kind of see what happens from there.
All right. Next up, Jack Sage Phoenix. He makes a comment. Yes, go vegan. There are plenty of options for protein and tasty food, curries, etc., and it's inherently fast-friendly, at least by the rules. And then, speaking of fasting, what is the spirit of fasting? You've told the story of your friend at a seminary, but to follow up, is the idea to eat bland food or not focus on what you are eating?
No, the idea...
I didn't go down far enough. I have to pull that up further. I asked because it's really easy to make delicious, filling food without meat, dairy, or oil. Should we also avoid spices? Coconut milk. Just eat smaller portions?
Yes, there you go. There you go. That's exactly it. Eat smaller portions. That's what that's really where I go with that my counsel with my parishioners has been, if you can follow the fast, then follow the fast. Okay, but many of us are in work situations that are very stressful, and we need our energy. We need that protein, okay? And protein does come in many sources. Some people are just not capable of having a good vegan diet. They're just not capable of it. So they need chicken. So this point that you said at the end is what I stress, is smaller portions. Can those portions be tasty? 100%. Nothing in our fasting regimen says the food has to be bland. Okay, when I was in the monastery, the food was kind of bland, all right? But nothing says that we can't add spices. I mean, I add spices to everything. The hotter the better. I love it. So yeah, don't overthink this, and don't give fasting any more glory than it deserves. It is a tool for us to increase our prayer life and to get us closer to God. So what you said there is perfect. Smaller portions. Make them as tasty as you want. Use your coconut milk if that makes you happy, and off we go.
Real quick, and this isn't normally something I'd point out, but we're 14 subscribers away from 8,000. So if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, I'm very curious to see if we can get it there tonight.
Ooh, just shy of 8,000.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's kind of cool. Wow. Remember when we started and we were like, we've hit 100. We've got 100 subscribers. Yeah. Wow.
It's still exciting to have 100.
It
we
is.
appreciate everyone that subscribes.
I mean, you're right.
Yes. All right. We have up next Trench. Hi, Trench. In school, you don't need a perfect grade to pass.
Yeah, I'm the witness of that.
Well, wait to the next part. With Christianity, what is a satisfactory passing?
That's good. There is no satisfactory passing. Either you're in or you're out. I mean, there's no, well, he's got a D, so he's getting in, because what it indicates is that you are striving for a particular score, so that the mentality is, if I achieve that score, I'm into heaven. And St. John Climacus has taught us that if you think of the ladder as grades, what does he tell you? When you have reached the top rung, which is
Christ.
Virtue.
Oh, okay.
Love.
Oh, gotcha.
Love.
Thought you
Okay.
meant he was the top rung was. Maybe Christ.
He is, but the virtues. Okay.
Okay.
The top virtue is love, and St. John Climacus tells us, if you think that you've reached the top rung, start back at the bottom again. So you can't ever think of it as an accomplished goal. You are a human being who can never be 100% Christ-like. So the best that you can be is you can approach Christ, and that is a continuous goal. So we can't equate it to, what is a passing grade. There is no passing grade. You are continuously being saved, right? St. John Chrysostom.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Jack follows it up and says, sin is sin, and all receive a failing grade, but for the grace of God.
Oh, I like that. Very good. Nicely said, Jack.
All right. Here's another interesting one from Trench. My priest refuses constructive criticism, which he lets women with short or tight skirts. But then again, he has a modern day mohawk pointed up at the center, tappers short on the side. A priest with a mohawk?
Or maybe you're just letting somebody in with a mohawk.
Oh,
yeah.
That's what I took it. The priest with a mohawk. I'm like, okay, that's that's an interesting look for a priest. I mean,
if you're going back to the 80s and 90s,
but Trench is bringing up the constant battle of the modern priest and I don't want to say the ancient priest, but what is proper. Certainly you have those priests that are ultra conservative and have the idea of trying to preserve a tradition that existed in the 50s, in the 40s, in the 1400s, in the 1200s. I mean, they're trying to maintain that. Okay, all right. And there are people for that. There are people who are looking for that degree of ultra-conservatism. But equally so, there is also a breed of priests who are somewhat on the liberal side, all right? And then there are priests that are, where I think that I am, that are moderate. There are certain things that we know that are important to preserve from our ancient traditions, but equally so, we live in a modern world, and we can make interpretations that will speak to a modern world. All right? So the example of the mohawk, well, no. You know what a more common example is? The tattoo. Okay? So there are priests that are very, very much against tattoos. They'll quote the Old Testament. Jesus didn't have any tattoos that we know of. Neither did St. Paul that we know of, right? And so why are you marking your body? And they will use that and say, okay, that puts you outside of Holy Communion. Okay, but then we have, let's say, people like me who served with many people in the military where it was a sign of brotherhood. And so I understand the concept of tattoos. And as long as it's not offensive to God, I don't want it to be a stumbling block between that person's salvation and then ancient tradition. So, it's not fair in Orthodoxy to say this is how a priest should behave or this is how a priest should behave. The priest has to behave appropriately in his parish to speak to his congregation. And there are going to be people in his congregation that are very ultra-conservative, and there's people that are going to be very liberal, and then there's people that are going to be moderate. And he has to speak to each one of those, because each one of those is the image and likeness of God.
Wow. Well, Christ has the ultimate marks on his body.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay.
The Ricci Report. Hello, everyone. For some people, it's fall. In my book, fall always starts the day school starts.
I have a feeling we're missing part of that.
I think so, too.
Ricci Report, I think we're missing the first part of your question, or maybe the entirety of your question. So please resubmit and we'll get to it.
Yes. Oh, and then Trench understood your reference to icon in a bottle. Good.
Oh, he did?
Yes,
okay,
he
good.
did.
All right.
Yes,
Somebody
he did.
got my... See? Okay.
Let's see. I'm Frank. Oh, here we go. I had to get through the comments. Frank asks, please let me know which Orthodox church is the most conservative when it comes to liturgy. That's in there twice. Yes. So, which church is the most conservative when it comes to liturgy?
I'd probably have to go. I'd probably have to go either with the Serbians or the Russians. Those liturgies are maintain some very, very ancient traditions. There's no we've kind of, in Greek Orthodoxy, we've made a couple of corrections there. I mean, nothing major, okay. But certainly I think the strictest and most conservative interpretations, for the sacraments, the Russian church and the Serbian church, I think would be the first to say, no, you are not appropriate as a godparent, right? Where we kind of are loosey-goosey about that. They would be the first to call you out of line. Like if you came up for communion and he knew that you were engaging in a premarital affair, if you weren't living a lifestyle that was conducive to Orthodox Christianity, he would pull the spoon back and take you out of line. I mean, so I think so. When I say conservative, I mean that they are able courageously to have to say, this is what Orthodox tradition is, and we're not negotiating that. And if you don't like it, then you can go somewhere else. And we're not as willing to do that here.
The reason that Frank asks is that Frank is a traditional Catholic who is thinking of converting to Orthodoxy. So with that in mind, would you have any advice?
Well, and this is kind of going back to an earlier question that was asked about culture and language and all that. What I would probably look at is I would look at the OCA. If you don't necessarily have a culture or a language skill or an affiliation with Serbia, Romania, Greece, then the OCA, I think, is the best choice, the Orthodox Church of America, because the liturgy is going to be in English. I mean, there's a couple of OCA churches that use a little bit of Slavonic, but it's just minute. So I think that it is the closest to the American culture where you might feel the most comfortable. That's a starting point. After that, then, I would also I would try the Greek Orthodox Church too. But the other churches tend to be very, very ethnically based. So the liturgies, like if you go to a Russian church, if you go to a Romanian church, a Bulgarian church, Ethiopian, you're going to hear it in that language, and you're going to be in that culture, and that might not be a comfortable place for you to be. So I'd start with either OCA or I'd start with, depending upon where you are, the Greek Orthodox Church.
Well, it depends part of the country too. I mean, the further west you go and the further
Yeah.
south you go, you're going to hear less Greek in the Greek
Yes,
Orthodox
yeah.
Church.
That's why I'm saying depends. If he's living in Chicago, then the Greek church is
Yeah.
going to be very Greek.
Yeah.
But if he's in Montana or he's in Texas, it's going to be, like you said, it's pretty much going to be English.
All right. Peter Robinson asks, what was the purpose of the bread lit with candles during the service Monday, and why did you hand it to a lady to hold? I'm curious.
Have we done a video on the Artoklasia service? Artoklasia service?
I'm not sure, and if we haven't, we have to.
I don't think you have. I don't remember seeing that.
In fact, we're doing one on. Can I announce it?
Yeah, you can announce.
Yeah, we're doing one on vestments. We've had a call to do one on the different types of vestments and each piece of the vestment. What does it mean? Why is it worn? So we're going to do that, and then we'll do one on the Artoklasia service. But
the vestments will be multiple videos.
Oh, multiple videos?
Yeah, multiple.
Okay,
Yeah.
the first time I'm hearing this, I don't know. So there's 5 loaves, and again, the five loaves for the 5 loaves that Jesus took into the wilderness, and the Artoklasia service itself is just the words from that Bible reading, and he took the bread and he broke it. So I gotta get this
When you
right.
say go into the you're talking about the loaves and fishes?
No, I said wilderness. No, that was something else. I'm mixing up 2 stories.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. He was on the mountain, but he brought the 5,000 people, and then he broke the bread. So he broke the bread, and in that Bible reading, it actually says, and he took the artu, which is bread. We don't. Somi is obviously the modern Greek term, but arto, and then klan. Oh, gotta get that right.
See it. Yeah, don't get it wrong.
Don't get because.
Well, that's okay. You can.
Okay, so and then to break is klaso. It also means to break wind if you're not careful. Okay, so that's where the Artoklasia comes from. It's the breaking of the bread. Okay, so all the 5 candles is just, again, another representative of the 5 loaves. And so the lady that you saw me give it to is that once we take the bread up and we say the rich
Richmond have become
poor, but those who
seek the Lord.
Those who seek the Lord shall not lack any good thing. Thank you. Okay, and so we always take that first loaf and we offer it back to the family who has asked for the Artoklasia to be performed. So in that case, what you saw me do is I took the first loaf that she offered, and she was the representative of the family, and I just gave that back to her. So.
And the rest we cut up and pass out.
And then the rest we cut out and pass out. Then the way we should do it is we should pour the comentaria.
At the seminary,
they pour the wine over the cut pieces, and that's the best.
I'm wondering how Presbytera knows the words better than you do when you're the one who says them almost every other week.
Because he's trying to think too fast. He's getting at you're speaking and you're not your brain and your.
And my mouth are not synced up.
Yes.
So
because you do know I can attest to that. All right.
Although they didn't do a lot of those in here. They like to do the Artoklasia, which is great because remember the Artoklasia is for the health, and it's a thanking service. It's not for the dead. That's a memorial service. Well, in Flint they didn't do it a lot, so I didn't get to practice it. Oh my goodness! And so the first time I did it here, oh geez. I had the words and I was like trying to remember how the tune went and I couldn't win, and then all of a sudden, Lori started singing it and I went, oh yeah, that's how. And so afterwards they're looking at me like, does he know the words or not? So now I've done it enough that I'm back in practice again. So,
well, all right. Trench, what do you think of the Go Arch having an article which states homosexual couples also cannot provide both a mother and a father to a child, and so should not be allowed to adopt children?
Well, so I'd have to look at the specific article, but I've heard this argument, and I can say that the Orthodox Church would agree with that. The Orthodox Church most definitely feels that the proper raising of a child is done with a masculine influence and a feminine influence. So there is a motherly influence, and then there is a fatherly influence. And we believe that both of those components are crucial and vital for the development of the child, so that they have both of those qualities. There are important masculine qualities there are masculine qualities that are important for that child's development that he will use. So, and again, I'm trying to be sexist here, okay, but a degree of strength, discipline, leadership, all right? But then there are also then, very important feminine characteristics that he or she would need to possess. And those characteristics would be mercy, compassion, charity, humility, patience. Okay, those are things that they would get most than likely for the mom. When the child has both of those, okay, the male child will then also have not only the strength and discipline of the man, but at the same time he'll know how to be nurturing. He'll know how to be compassionate. He'll understand that patience and humility is important. The female child, as she grows up, what she's going to need to understand that discipline is important. She's going to need to understand that courage is important, that she has to be able to stand up, to build her leadership qualities. Okay, so those will come from both sides of the parents. And so in that sense, this is one of the arguments that we have against a homosexual couple having children, because we're not confident that both of those qualities can be imbued to that child. Again, we're not making a statement here, about we're not welcoming that couple into the home church, our home, which is the church. But what we're saying is we are not yet confident that that child will receive both of those very important attributes. Thank you. Okay.
Well, what would you say to, right now, like when it comes to adoptions and so forth, not to mention the fact that it's already very, very difficult to adopt, but there are a lot of children that need homes. If there is a good gay couple that wants to raise a child in a good, safe, loving home, isn't that a better option than not having the option?
Than having them grow up in a foster home?
Yeah.
Again, I'd have to make a personal comment here and say that you're right. That is certainly a better option in a loving environment, that child grows up in a loving environment. But at that same time, that child needs to have both of those attributes given to him or her. But you're right. In that situation, do I grow up in a foster home or do I grow up in a loving environment? Again, personally, I would say, I think that loving environment is the better option.
I do have to say, though, that those attributes can be interchanged in the husband and wife. The discipline may come from the wife, and the nurturing may come from the mom, and the nurturing may come from the dad. It's
True. Yes.
But
yeah.
It's had to throw that because you're probably going to get some hate mail.
Well, okay. Yeah. But that's why I said the girl child needs those masculine techniques too, to be able to properly operate in today's world. She needs those. And she's got to get them from somebody. And you're right. She may get them from the mom, because the dad is the one who is much more patient. But then she still needs those qualities of humility and patience. And in this case, she's going to get it from the dad. So that's why I'm saying we're not really sure yet, because, this kind of brings up a good point. Would you say that even these attributes are present in a gay couple, meaning that a gay couple that gets together
There's
does.
usually one that's more dominant and one that's more.
That's what I was.
submissive,
Yeah, there. Thank you. That's what I was trying to say. So even though they are a gay couple, they are still exhibiting, those two characteristics. Both of them are not very masculine, or both of them are not very feminine, right?
I mean, some of the friends I've known that are couples, they're you see a little bit more of a. You see a little bit more of that.
You said the traditional role. Yeah, I'm good with that.
You see that. This argument to me has always been kind of silly in a few different ways, just because of the fact that I've known enough traditional man-woman couples that have been neglectful of their children.
Yeah.
And then when I see two people trying to have a child, wanting and having that having a good loving environment, and not being allowed to because of dogma or law or so forth, that does bring up. Honestly, I think that the real argument, if you want to cut out all the excess here, the real argument is, in my opinion, the one that nobody wants to say, is I think that they just don't want a lot of religious or political figures are afraid that the child of a gay couple will become gay. Honestly, I think that's the reason that a lot of people are against that. They just don't want to say it.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because I haven't heard that in the conversations. I haven't heard that as one of the points being brought up. Okay.
I think it's something that people would be afraid to say.
I think
but
that
I'm
is.
not saying that. I honestly, I go back to my original statement. I think that a child that's raised in a loving home is a good child, is a lucky child.
Right.
But I think that that's one of the fears that that people, when they talk about gay marriage and they talk about the adoption of children, I think that's one of the factors that's in play, but that nobody wants to speak about.
Okay.
I think you're right about that. But speaking about church and so forth, you showed me that picture that was on a church sign. I think it was it Lutheran or Methodist,
So
and it
like
said something like,
Jesus had two dads.
we think that's terrific or something.
Right, and that's
like
just theologically it's just theologically incorrect.
Real quick, for the sake of time, we should jump ahead to some people who haven't had their questions answered yet.
Sure.
And if we have time, we'll circle back.
All right. I think Dana Gilmore, I think that's the next one up. Hello from Houston, Texas. By the way, Houston is a Scottish word.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm.
My family and I are new to Orthodoxy. We've gone to liturgy the past 4 weeks. We are not members.
Okay.
When is it appropriate to light candles, make the sign of the cross, and venerate icons?
Any time that you'd like. I mean, don't let anybody tell you can't make the sign of the cross. We don't. When you buy a candle, we don't ask you the question. Sorry, you're Orthodox. You can't have that candle. You go up, you buy a candle, you watch what people do. You've been going for 4 weeks. You kind of know what the deal is. Nothing stops you from doing those things right now. The only thing that really you can't do is receive communion. Other than that, obviously confession thing, but really it boils down to communion, all right? So, yes, you can make the sign of the cross, and in fact, if you are coming from a faith tradition like Catholicism, then make your cross the way a Catholic would make that. I mean, this is not a big deal, okay? Certainly go and light your candle. We have absolutely no issue with you reverencing the icons, okay? If you're doing that in a proper and respectful manner, I think that's a great thing. And then make the sign of the cross. And nobody can tell you that you can't do any of those things.
Okay, she had another part further on down. I think you just answered it. She says she's been watching the videos. They're very helpful. She knows that they can't participate in the Eucharist.
Okay.
Is there anything besides that they cannot participate in?
Okay. Technically, they can't participate in confession, and they can't act as godparents. Okay, those are the ones that come to godparents or sponsors at a wedding. Those are things that are reserved for an Orthodox Christian. But during the course of we're talking, you're attending the liturgy right now. Other than the receipt of the Eucharist, there's nothing that you cannot to do. And in fact, make sure that you go up at the end and you receive the andidron.
Yes, that's for
Mm-hmm.
Gus Ganem. If the Orthodox faith does not believe in toll houses, then why did Jesus say, "My Father has many rooms for you, and I will prepare one for you"?
Well, okay, so the first part of it is not technically true. There are certainly Orthodox that believe in toll houses. Father Seraphim Rose is the perfect example. Okay, he is Orthodox, and he even wrote a book about it and kind of got this whole thing going.
For those unaware, what are tall houses? Not toll houses, tall houses. Yeah.
Toll, T-O-O-T-O-L-L.
You say tall a lot, but it's actually toll.
Toll. Okay.
Yeah.
Toll houses. Okay. So I mean, how do they best describe stops along the way, right?
Well, no, this says tall houses. The question says T-A-L-L.
No, but it's
yeah.
it's
But they-
T-O.
yeah.
It's
I'm
T-O.
just specifying.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea that you are progressing to heaven when you die, you're being judged. So we look at your life from this, and then the demon argues against you. Your guardian angel argues for you. Then you pass up to the next toll house, and then you keep going. And this does not have solid basis in Orthodox or Christian theology, because Jesus came for our salvation. So again, none of us are worthy of salvation, but through his death, we have achieved the grace to be able to ask God. Okay? Again, we don't believe in atonement theology. We don't believe in this trading that Jesus's death and his blood atone for our sins, and he is the sin offering to appease the angry God. We do not believe in atonement theology, but what we do believe is that Jesus Christ is the mediator who, because of our sinfulness, has paid the price for our sin so that we can reapproach God, so that we can restore what Adam and Eve originally had.
Well, what about this part of the question here where, why did Jesus say, "My Father has many rooms for you, and I will prepare one for you"?
Okay, so in that case, the standard Orthodox theology on that is the idea of, we most of the time see that as a metaphor. In fact, do we have the verse for that?
Which verse? Let me. I'll have to try to do a reverse search.
Yeah, just give me a because.
Okay, and Frank had asked a question, which now I've gone way down, but the research.
John 14:2.
Oh, all right, saved by the bell.
Saved by the bell. Oh, we're going to talk about that, and Bible study is coming up.
And Gus also says, "Hi and welcome back."
And it is nice to be back, Gus. Thank you very much.
And how much money do we have to raise to for a Demo's face reveal?
Well, how
boy.
What did we said 500, right? We got to 4 something, right?
Or was it a subscriber number? Wasn't it? We were trying to reach a certain.
There have been many different statements made over the years. I don't know. Let me find out how much my honeymoon costs. No, I'm kidding.
Or I can say go back to some very old Q&As.
Well, we'll figure out something at one point.
Okay. So, and again, I'm just speaking out of the Orthodox Study Bible here. Many mansions is a word picture of an abundance of living accommodations around a central courtyard. Mansions also speaks of the multitude of blessings that await those who enter the kingdom of God. So that would be the at least from the Orthodox Study Bible. That's the study notes. That would be what we would consider then the explanation for that. So we see that more as a metaphor.
All right. I'm going to go to some more people who have not had a question answered.
Okay.
Nictarios. As part of the strict fast, can you please confirm why does the Orthodox Church outline to abstain from having oil? Does it have a religious meaning, or is it a tradition or other?
Yes, it is. It is a tradition. The original meanings for that was, from Saint Basil. What you were supposed to do is the fast had you abstain from things that were costly. Okay, meat was definitely costly, and the process of making oil, hand-pressed oil, was very expensive. So oil was expensive, and what Saint Basil's recommendation is the money that you would have spent on buying meat and buying the oil, that difference you would take. And as charity, remember, part of the triangle, right? Okay, so prayer, fasting, alms. So that money that you saved from fasting was supposed to go to charity and charity-based organizations. So that's part of where the idea of oil came from. Now it's not. Oil is not that is not that much different from Crisco, and I mean it's a little more expensive. Okay.
Well, yeah, there's some price differences
Yeah.
in that.
Olive oil is still expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's where that came from just Saint Basil's idea that those things that were costly would provide you extra money so that you could be charitable.
All right. Aaron, 88205. Father, what would be a simple explanation to give to someone who is not Christian regarding why we have blessed items and how we benefit from them?
Okay, to someone who is not Christian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that doesn't mean atheist, right? It just means Muslim or Jewish
anybody,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I assume you'd probably change it if somebody has faith or somebody doesn't.
yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that. So somebody that does believe in God, then the answer is that even in their religion, the idea of God granting a blessing is present throughout Scripture, whether that be Old Testament or whether that be New Testament. And even in pagan religions, they sought the blessing of their particular deity, whatever that was. So the only difference is the request for the blessing is absolutely the same. The difference is that we are asking the blessing to be given by the one true God, which is the only place that a blessing in the term of blessing can come from. So if it's a faith-based person that is telling you that, then the answer is very simple. You do the same thing. You ask for a blessing from your deity, and all we're saying is the name of that deity, as St. Paul says, I know the name of that unknown God, and that is where the source of blessings comes from. Okay?
All right.
Now, do I have to answer the other part of the question? How do you...
Well, I mean, to an atheist, it would be a little bit more difficult to explain, I assume.
So, and the reason I wanted to just stand on that for just a second, we have had on this show a number of questions about how can I prove the existence of God, or at least questions around that kind of topic. I've got somebody who doesn't believe, or how do I address them, or how do I convince them that there is God? And the Orthodox answer for that is exactly what St. John Damascus tells us, is that for the Orthodox, the assumption is God exists. That's the starting point. So for us, we would never engage in that argument. All right? So the idea about the blessing, as Demos said, is going to be much more difficult for a person who doesn't have any faith. Okay? Because the premise cannot be accepted. All right? If you can't accept the premise that God exists, then the idea of a blessing makes absolutely no sense. So there's not an argument that you can use. It is a pointless and fruitless endeavor to try to convince people that God exists. If I said that right. I mean, for us as Orthodox, that is a matter of faith. Okay.
I say the only way you can explain to an atheist would be just in a rudimentary, like, educational fashion. This is, like a dictionary definition. This is what it is. This is what's believed. But I wouldn't, if you're discussing it in a theological or evangelical manner, this would not be the topic near the top of the list to explain.
Yeah, I mean, like to me, it's almost like like explain to me why a plane can fly, right? If you don't believe in air, right? I mean, where do I go with that? I mean,
well, I mean, it depends. Like I said, if you're trying to just define it, then you just define it.
Yes, I see. Yeah, right. Yeah. And if you don't accept the definition, well, then there you go.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. A Gray Panther asks, if one confesses but the priest does not forgive the sin, can that sin be confessed at a later time to be forgiven? And does the priest assign a penance before forgiving?
Yes, yeah. The priest cannot just not forgive the sins, because there always has to be reconciliation. There always is reconciliation. So the priest can deny the absolution of the sin, but then a penance will come with that. Okay, and how each priest obviously is going to issue whatever penance they feel is appropriate to that particular repentance. Okay, and then they have to give you a time when that penance will be lifted. So no, the priest just can't say, "Well, I'm sorry, but you can't be forgiven this sin." So.
And then can I just point out something? It's something you said, and the question: if the priest does not forgive the sin, and when you were talking about not forgiving sin, it's not the priest that forgives the sin.
Well, okay. Yes, and those
Just
are in the words.
Because people are going to hear that, and if they don't understand, I know what you mean, but some are going to say only God, only Jesus can forgive sin.
You did a video about that recently that caused confusion.
Well, okay, now, and again, I just gotta, I mean, this is it's a little bit of a sticking point here. All right, because here. So here's the prayer of absolution out of the priest's priest's Colonia, the prayer book. No prayer book. No, we have a handbook. Yeah. That's something else. Okay. My spiritual child who has confessed to me, a humble person, I, a sinner, have no power on earth to forgive sins but God alone. Okay? But through that divinely spoken word which came to the apostles, where Jesus Christ said, whosever sins you remit, they are remitted. Whosever sins you retain, they are retained. We are emboldened to say that whatever you have said to me, a humble person, whatever it may be, may God forgive you in this world. So I am saying that.
But it's may God forgive you in this world.
May God forgive you in this world. Okay, yes, yeah, that's true. But Jesus did give his apostles and us through apostolic succession the ability to be emboldened to say, whatever you have said to me, may God forgive you. Right. So I'm asking that through what Jesus Christ has given to us through apostolic succession, that I can ask God that he can forgive you.
Right.
But you're right. The prayer says very specific, God alone.
We have a super chat from Tommy Williams.
Ooh, right.
Hi, Tommy.
Does Orthodoxy believe ghosts walk the earth, such as haunted houses? And before you answer that, we do have a Sunday school video about that topic.
Yes, we did. Yes, for the Halloween that we made the Halloween.
Yeah.
No, we're not. We don't believe in ghosts or anything like that. Again, there are some, there are some Orthodox that say that that the soul of the person will remain for 9 days, right? That's why we have the 9-day Tersayon. But that is for them, okay, for them to have a foretaste of heaven and a foretaste of hell. But that's for them. They're not here talking to us and saying, Demos, you must.
That was you.
That's right. That was me at your window. All right. But no, we don't believe in ghosts. All right. Now, do we believe that the demons have the ability to create phantoms for us? That we think that we're seeing ghosts and all that kind of stuff. That truly, that is possible. But no, we're whatever communication God allows with His saints. Or through the Virgin Mary, those are very, very rare instances, and they are very, very specific to somebody with a distinct need for that particular miracle.
All right. Just Rubio says, I don't understand why, if coming from Roman Catholic, why I would only be chrismated opposed to triple immersion baptism. Because don't they chrismate right after baptism? I understand the Trinitarian
Formula.
Where is we at? Oh, formula. Sorry, it got split up. The Trinitarian formula, and based on diocese, the higher-ups state chrismation is fine for reception, but the point... Okay.
So the answer is your baptism as a Catholic was a triune baptism. It was a Trinitarian baptism. Okay, so we have no problem with that formula. Okay, but what we were asking you to do when you were chrismated, you agreed to abide by the canons and the doctrine of the Roman Catholic Church. What we are asking you to do when you get chrismated is we're asking, and the words are there, have you renounced all previous religions? And do you accept the teachings and the canons of the Orthodox Church? So in that sense, you do need to be re-chrismated, because we have to hear you renounce any previous faith obligations and accept the Orthodox Church's practices and canons.
All right. David Neck asks, if I miss church, should I feel guilty? I battle with feeling guilty when it comes to following Christian values. Is it normal to be at a constant fight when it comes to not following the faith and rituals to a T? Or should I feel guilty as a... Sorry, I gotta scroll up a little bit. Or should I feel guilty as a Christian when I am not involved in the church, orthodoxy, calendar, etc.? Modern times is extremely hard. I try, but I feel guilty when I can't meet expectations.
So to start off, we as Orthodox do not use the word as the Catholics would, is meet obligation. That I have not met my weekly obligation. All right. So we wouldn't use that kind of language. All right. But certainly the Orthodox Church agrees with the Catholic Church that there is no salvation outside the church. That is a very, very hard saying, and a lot of people don't want to accept that, but there is no salvation outside the church. What that means is that you cannot be saved, or you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven as an island, being just yourself. You have to be part of a Christian community, all right? And that Christian community, requires corporate prayer. You can say, yes, well, I pray at home and all that, and that's wonderful. But you have an obligation to your community and to your fellow men and women, all right? And that involves corporate prayer, and corporate prayer occurs in church, all right? The Orthodox Church, very, very few priests that I know, are saying, well, you don't come to church every Sunday, so therefore you're not a good Christian. I don't know any of any priests that are saying that. But they certainly to include myself, they expect that you will make a sincere effort to be part of your church community, because that church community is there for your salvation. They're there to help you when you get depressed and when you struggle and when you lose your job and when members of your family die. That's what we're there for, to help you. Equally so, we're there to help you on that path to salvation. You don't get saved by yourself. You get saved in the community of believers. So should you feel guilty if you're not being part of a community? Yeah, you should. All right, so I can't argue with that. But feeling guilty then just becomes, a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sit around and go, I'm being guilty for myself. Do something. Do something about it. Make time. Okay? And if that means that you you carve out an hour a month that you can go to church and be part of that community, then do it. Okay? Many of the young men, mostly unmarried, that I have brought back to the church, I've brought back through the back door of the church. Okay? And Demos, I'm going to use you as an example.
Oh boy.
When you came to me, that's exactly the words out of your mouth. You said, I am looking for a Greek community. At the time, you said, I'm Greek. I'm looking for a Greek community. Okay, what I took that to mean is that you want to be part of a community. You were not part of a community. All right, but after we talked for about 10 minutes, I was like, okay, with Demos, it's not going to work to say, okay, here's what you got to do. You got to come to church every Sunday. Okay, that wasn't going to work. Well,
yeah, you found a way.
I did. I'm sneaky that way. Ponero Santo de Pospuima, yeah. Okay, so
other than you, I'm here the most.
Well, that is very, very true, especially during Holy Week. You are the, but I knew that that wasn't the right answer. But the right answer was to find out, what do you want to do? And this is what he wanted to do. And we turned it into a ministry, and through that ministry, he became a very valued member of this community. People like him.
They really like you.
They really like you, right? All right, and that's exactly what you got to do.
My birthday is November 16th.
Okay. So again, I gotta say, yes, feel guilty, but more importantly, do something about it, okay? And find out how you can get involved, and get yourself out there. And like I said, it doesn't have to be every week because your situation may not allow for that, but certainly everybody can commit to, at least in the beginning, once a month.
So real quick, we got a super chat from Reformed Catholic. The message was retracted, but thank you so much for the donation. Tommy Williams also has a super chat, but also asks another question asking if I'm married. No, but thanks for the interest. He also asks, is it possible or likely to follow Orthodox perfectly? Such as follow all the canons and dogma perfectly, other than Jesus, of course.
No, I don't see anybody, and that includes some of the saints. I don't see anybody following all of the canons of the church.
Whoa! Sorry for the mic.
Oh, sorry. Okay, all right.
You can't help yourself.
All right. So I know I can't, but I wanted to make a point. I was making a point, right? Okay. So no, following all of the canons of the church, I don't see how anybody can do them. The church specifically says that you must be 35 years. Well, actually, how old was I when I got ordained?
You were more than 35.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I was more than 35. But we've got a lot of priests who are in their 20s. Okay, they're not following the canons of the church. All right, so I don't see where anybody could follow all of the canons of the church. But that's not what Orthodoxy demands. These are not tickets to get into the kingdom of heaven. Okay, these are applied appropriately with economia and akrivia.
All right, we have a question from Amanda Lee. How do you tell the difference between everyday Orthodox priest vestments and Catholic?
You know, that's kind of a tough one because what we are supposed to be wearing is the cassock, and the best way I can describe that is neo, right? What Neo wore in
It was a Russian one, wasn't it?
it was a Russian because and they form fitted that to him. Though cassocks are not form, they're not supposed to be form fitting. You're not supposed to look that good in a cassock. All right. So in that sense, it would be difficult to tell the difference between let's say Roman Catholic and an Orthodox, because we both are supposed to be wearing that long cassock. Now, they're cut a little bit differently. There's some trimmings that you could, if you're attentive, you could see that. But you're going to see both of them in black. Okay. The other thing that's difficult, especially in our metropolis, is, you know, if I just wear a collared shirt, right? You could not. I mean, you'd mistake me as a Catholic priest. Nothing about this tells you that I'm Orthodox, right? Okay. Now, more and more younger Catholic priests are wearing the cassock, and more younger priests, Orthodox priests, are wearing the cassock. So we're getting away from that 1940s, 50s, 60s, even 70s look of the collar, where the Orthodox and Catholic were looking exactly the same.
All right. Angela
Angela.
Yanis, I think. Hello, Father, Presbytera, and Demos. Thank you for your time and edifying program. My question is about the Divine Liturgy on Sunday. Do we kneel during Tasak Ekton Son? Thank you from Sydney, Australia.
Wow. Okay, so just before the consecration, right, we say thine own of thine own. That's what we're saying. Tasak Ekton Son. All right, so because every single Sunday is a mini resurrectional service, it's a mini Pascha, okay, we should not be kneeling, okay? Now, having said that, every Sunday we kneel, okay? So there was a letter that was written in the by the, I'm trying to remember now whether it was Demetrius or whether it was Archbishop Spiridon, I'm trying to remember, or Iakovos, I'm trying to remember
Somebody.
one of those wrote it and said, and I've got a copy of it somewhere, we understand, now this is from the Archdiocese of America, we understand that even though each Sunday is a mini Pascha and that we should be standing so that we can remember that a liturgy should be happening every day, then we will kneel on Sundays, on normal Sundays, outside of the Paschal feast, right? From the Paschal feast all the way up until the kneeling prayers of Pentecost, okay? So we were given that specific instruction from the Archdiocese. But outside of that, there in Romania, Russia, probably Australia too, no, you should not be kneeling.
All right, D.C. Robinson says, why does it seem to take forever to become Orthodox? I've been ready to do this, but my local Orthodox parish seems really strict about going to become a catechumen.
Okay, one more time.
All right, let me make sure that there's not more below. Okay, there is a little bit more. Why does it seem to take forever to become Orthodox? I have been ready to do this, but my local Orthodox parish seems really strict about going to become catechumen. It's hard for me to commit if I feel like it's never going to happen, and I've been a believer all my life.
All I want to do is convert.
Okay. Everything has to have a closed end. Okay, so when for the catechumens that I have, I'm very specific. We have to go through all 10 modules. You have to spend 1 year going through all of the feasts of the church. At the end of that, I will ask you, do you want to still be chrismated? If you say yes, we plan your date. And that way you have a clear understanding that this process will end in 1 year. And it's all based on you. You want to be chrismated, you don't want to be chrismated. But it's a 1-year process. There is absolutely no reason why you cannot be given a date. And by a date, I mean a time frame, okay? Every priest that I know has a particular set of criteria that they use. Like me, I have those 10 sessions, and then I have the 1-year life in the church. Okay, every priest has their own set, and once you complete that instruction or whatever you want to call that, catechism. Once you complete that catechism, then they schedule you for, assuming you want to be, they schedule you. So you have every right to demand from the priest that is taking your catechism, or you're going through your catechism with, and asking him, what is the length of time for this process? What must I do? And he has to lay it out. He has to say, I need you to do this, and then I need you to do this, and then if you complete those, then you will be catechized. You will be chrismated as an Orthodox Christian. If he fails to do that, go somewhere else. But you cannot stay in this open-ended state of, well, I don't know when this is. No. You have every right to say, what is the process that I need to complete? And if he can't give you an answer, you got to move on.
All right. Reformed Catholic says John Chrysavius had some provocative comments regarding Mount Athos on public orthodoxy. What is your opinion about monastic commentary about secular life?
What is monastic commentary on
about secular life?
We have monasteries for a specific purpose. It is important. One of the jewels of Orthodoxy is that we have monasticism. It has a place. And it is, for me personally, going to a monastery is a spiritual renewal, because I can get really beaten down by the world, by the secular world, and the monastery is a place that I know I can go for spiritual renewal. So that is a jewel of the Orthodox Church. Having said that, all right, the monasteries have to understand that life in the secular world is not life in a monastery, as life in a monastery is not the secular world. All right? So they have to be, the monastery has to be very careful about the kinds of commentaries that they make about what is appropriate in the secular world, because they have abandoned the secular world. So it is inappropriate for them to make commentary. Now, I know some people will say, well, there's no difference between being a monk and being a lay person. Well, that's not right, because one, monks aren't married; they don't have a wife. Okay, so they don't understand the concept of married life. That's a huge difference right there. Monks don't need a salary. All right, so they don't have to put up with the politics of wherever they're working, whether that's General Motors or Chrysler or Boeing. They don't have to work in that political environment. Okay, so they don't know anything about that. So we need to be very careful, when we are taking secular advice from monks, because they do not live in our world. Equally so, we don't live in their world. So we can't go into I love it when, parishioners come back to me, and say, I went to the monastery and they told me that I couldn't wear this, I couldn't wear that. Well, it's their monastery. They have the right to do that. You can't take your secular values and apply it to the monastery. That's their world. Equally so, we as priests live in the secular world. We understand the subtleties of what a work environment entails, of what marriage entails, of what having a kid on drug entails. We understand those difficulties because we live them. So we have to be very careful. So I would support those comments that say that we have to be very careful when we seek out how to live in a secular world, from a monastic perspective. And that's not to say there's no crossovers, okay, but
All right. A question from Scare Spooks. Hello, Father. My local Greek Orthodox church doesn't have icons for sale in the store. I think they are out of stock. I'm not sure, but what can you recommend me when buying icons? Maybe online?
Oh, skeet.com. Skeet.com is a place to go.
Can you spell it?
skete.com.
Let me just double check so we don't send anybody to s.com. skete.com.
skete.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
That's it. Good. Yep, that's pretty much where I get all my icons. They have a complete library, and not only that, they have it in all and any kind of size you want. They're beautiful, beautiful icons. In fact, our icon of the Saints of Scotland. That's the kind. That's an icon from. Wait a minute. Oh, hold up. Wait a minute. Okay, let me give you another one too. Oh, sorry. Okay, I got all excited. So the vast majority I get from Skeet. However, if you are looking for icons that are not necessarily Greek, meaning like this one right here, this is the so British saints that are Orthodox, then what is that?
Teshin Iconographics.
Yeah, he does a great job. So a lot of the like Saint Columba, Saint Oran.
Oran, that was one.
Saint
Scotland.
Oran, the saints of Scotland, saints of Great Britain. He has a huge collection of those. So between those, you're going to find the icon you want.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go back up because I mistakenly passed one by. There's a lot of stuff going on in the
I'll put it back
in the chat. So Nicholas Yerostergios, why is it in the icebox churches? We light candles and venerate the icons. It says by the Catholic Church. I think he means but the Catholic. Wait, I'm not understanding this question.
Yeah, so let's start again. Why is it in the icebox churches? Do you understand what that phrase means? Icebox churches. We light candles, and it could be they meant Orthodox and it spelled correctly.
Oh,
Orthodox.
okay.
So why is it in the Orthodox churches we light candles and venerate icons, but to the Catholic Church, there's a blessing. Their blessings are obsessed with holy water. So there is that is true. In the Orthodox Church, when you walk in, there is an emphasis on lighting candles and venerating the icons. But when you walk into a Catholic church, there's much more of a focus on the holy water.
Well, that's not necessarily true because there many times in the Catholic churches that I've been in, there are candle stands there where you may not light like the little pencil candle that we have, but you buy like more like the little memorial candles. So they do have, and usually Catholic churches have small chapelettes. And in there, many times there will be icons or statues, and they'll light candles in there. So lighting candles is a Catholic tradition.
But every Catholic church I've been into, which hasn't been a lot, but I have been in some, they dip their hands into the holy water and.
Yes, so there is a remembrance of the baptism that we do not have. So when they dip as a cleansing action and a recall of their baptism, they do that. But it's not holy water in the sense of the way that we have it, where we have the font and you fill up your holy water bottle so that you can use it. The Catholics do have holy water, but the font that they have at the beginning of the church is not for that purpose.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'd say that there's an emphasis on that.
All right. I hope I didn't. I know I skipped some because we were trying to get to people who hadn't had a question answered. So I hope I didn't skip any too many.
Well, there were a lot of great questions tonight, and we actually were already 11 minutes over. So real quick,
we're not doing 2 hours?
We can.
No.
But we try to get to everybody. There's one more question here from somebody we haven't gotten to tonight.
Okay.
If you didn't get your question answered, please resubmit it. We try to answer everybody at least one question from everybody that comes in. The last question we have is from Jeff Gilmore. Can you talk about the difference in experiencing the liturgy as a priest compared to a participant?
Yeah, definitely. When I was first ordained, my spiritual father said, "Okay, look, for the first 5 years, you're not going to enjoy liturgy." And I was like, "What? What do you mean I'm not going to enjoy liturgy?" And he's like, "You're going to be so focused on on the style, the words, saying things right, the motions, what you need to do. You're going to be so wrapped up in that, and then you're going to have altar boys talking to you, the acolytes are going to be talking to you, the chanters are going to be talking to you.
Crazy video guys.
At the time it wasn't, but okay. So there's so much going on, you're not going to be able to focus." And he was dead on, okay? So for that first 5 years, my experience as a priest was much worse than the experience that a layman would have, because a layperson can enjoy the liturgy and be in the moment. Now that, I'm closing in on 15 years here, I am much more confident and much more prepared for what needs to be done, so I can focus more on the prayers, and as I and as my altar boys and my acolytes learn who I am and I learn who they are, that conversation almost goes away, because they know what needs to be done even before I know many times. So they're taking care of whatever needs to be done, and I have the opportunity now to engage much more. So I would say that now I am having that same experience as the layperson. Okay. Now I think it's a little bit different, because I know what I need to do, so I'm very involved, so my attention is always focused. The problem that the layperson has is they're not necessarily doing anything, and so their mind tends to wander. So staying focused in the liturgy has become much easier for me, but it is now difficult for them, all right, because it is the same liturgy each week except for some readings and things like that. So that can be difficult. So that's why many times people will come to me and they'll say, "Is there something I can do? Can I chant? Can I sing?" And I tell them, "Hey, be part of the choir, or come and be an acolyte if you'd like, or be a reader." So, and then when they actually get engaged and they start doing things, all of a sudden they tell me the liturgy was over before I knew what was going on, because they're engaged. So that's now becoming the difference, is that layperson is unfortunately kind of stuck now, not being able to participate as fully and be as engaged as I am engaged, or the chanter is engaged, or the choir is engaged.
Oh, one last thing, and Aaron asks, "Father, do you mean St. Isaac Skeet? Skeet.com."
St. Isaac Skeet. Yes, he's correct. I didn't know, I couldn't remember the full name, but so this, and Demo said, hey, we're running out of time here. One of the jobs now that Presbytera has taken on, and that's one of the things that she's more capable of doing than, let's say, the other host, is if I tend to become verbose or pontificate, she's very easily able, as my wife, to say, "You're talking way too much." So I know that sometimes I get a little long on the questions, and so she'll either give me a look or she'll say, that's good. That's enough." So,
well, on the plus side, at least you can answer dozens and dozens of questions in an hour and a half rather than just one or two.
Well, that's true too. She does have to put the hammer down on me.
I do want to just very quick follow up on D.C. Robinson, who was talking about the catechumenism and how there wasn't a time frame. And so
yes. Oh,
so they have a follow up where they're just saying, I guess it's on me, but it's hard to go every week for a year to be Orthodox. Now, I just want to specify, as part of the catechumen time frame that you lay out, is that a requirement? 52 weeks in a year?
No. And good that you asked that, so I can explain it. The reason for the year is I want you to experience every single one of the 12 feasts. So I want you to, starting in January, I want you to be there for the baptism of Christ. I want you to be there for Lent. I want you to be there for Pascha. I want you to be there for Holy Week. I want you to be there for Pascha, for Pentecost, for the Assumption, for Christmas. Okay, I'm not saying that you need to be there 52 weeks out of the year, but what I want you to do is I want you to experience all 12 great feasts, and that needs a year. Okay, so does that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not straight 52 weeks, but it's like you're going to be there for the Lenten service. You're going to be there for Holy Week. You're going to be there for Pascha. You're going to be there for Assumption. Right.
Yeah, but so if they make it to 11 out of the 12.
Yes. I mean,
they get a passing grade.
They get that's right. They get a passing grade. That's right.
So once again, we got a lot of great questions. We had a great group tonight. A lot of new faces. I was really happy to see that.
Okay, great.
A lot of people jumping in right now. Costa and Annie just saying how much they appreciate this. Highlight of the week according to Jack. So thank you guys so much. If we didn't get to your question tonight, please save it, resubmit it. I try to usually save some of the ones I find interesting, but they're getting more and more and more. So,
and again, I just got to say, I did not, I mean, I don't think you did either, but I just didn't expect that it would stay so popular. I thought, we're going to burn this thing out. But, I mean, if what you're saying is true.
For success.
I mean, apparently so. Okay, right.
Well, like I said, we started this show. We said this last week for the 100th, but we started this show as a way to help people when they were going through the pandemic, as a way to even just showcase some of the small businesses in the area that were struggling during that time. Mm-hmm. And it grew, and we started building in a community, not just here in Rochester, but internationally, which was just incredible, bringing all these different types of people together, a lot of new converts to Orthodoxy, etc. And we've seen so much, so it's been so beneficial to a lot of people that we just want to keep it going and keep it growing.
And if they're ever in the area, we've met a few of our
Scott's come by,
In fact, D.C. Robinson lived in Rochester in the 70s.
Oh wow! Okay. Oh, very cool.
Hey, and some of you may have seen it. We're even starting to attract dating bots. So now we know that we're successul. Yeah. I had to block them.
Yes, there were a lot of them.
Yeah, and then you got a marriage proposal or something. Somebody asked you if you were married?
No.
I did not get
I thought that was a marriage proposal.
No, not. They just wondered if Demos is married.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't have to throw this away. Jack Sage Phoenix is picking this up.
Yeah. Well, we'll just double check, make sure. I think it's okay.
No, it's. I think it's fine.
No, I made a honeymoon joke, and that's when that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Oh, hopefully soon. Yeah.
Hopefully soon. Oh, okay.
Hopefully soon.
Keep him in your prayers.
No, keep her in your prayers.
Yeah, she's gonna need them more than me. All right. Well, with that said.
Again, Presbytera, thank you very much, Demos, as always. And again, we'll be seeing you next. We'll be seeing you Sunday, hopefully, for those of you that join us, and then certainly we'll see you next week.
Can you give a little update? Marissa's defense is in September, right? She's got that schedule.
Yes, yeah, Marissa, one of our, I think, other than Presbytera and myself, she's hosted the most. Very first host.
Yes, very right. Mm-hmm.
On-screen host.
On-screen host. Yes. And so, unfortunately, she's going to be moving, but she is defending her doctorate or her dissertation here in September. Again, if you wouldn't mind, say a small prayer for her success for that, mostly so she doesn't stress out about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, good night, everyone, and we'll see you on Sunday. I think there's a Greek song about that.
Oh, never on Sunday?
Oh, never mind. The opposite of that.
Yes, that's right. Yes, always on a Sunday.
Good night.
Night.